Elliott Waves, Fractals, and Fibonacci structure. It's very important to study Elliott Waves, because they help you understand the fractal nature of price movement. They allow you to distinguish between macrowaves and microwaves, and once you can see that difference, you start recognizing when a true structural break is forming, and when the structure is actually intact and the wave sequence is still flowing naturally. Elliott Waves also deepen your understanding of Fibonacci ratios. These ratios are not random, they're absolute structural laws that repeat across every time frame on the chart. The more you study them, the more your eye becomes trained to see these relationships intuitively, even before measuring. Let me demonstrate how I read the movement here. The first thing I look for is a clean, stable movement, a structured wave. This usually shows up as a simple one-to-one fractal move. Now, this basic fractal often expands into a larger one-to-one movement, but inside that expansion, something interesting can happen. In the second fractal of this structure, the internal ratios are no longer one-to-one. Instead, they shift into something like 1 to 1.5. This already tells me that the internal structure is breaking its uniformity and moving into a phase of chaos. And because the internal wave loses its symmetry, the next fractal that forms afterward is no longer a clean one-to-one either, it becomes something like 1 to 1.618. This change in proportion signals that the market is transitioning from order into expansion, and from expansion into a new structural phase. In this chart, each diamond represents a three-segment internal structure that together forms one larger movement. The important point is that the internal ratios are not fixed Fibonacci rules. They simply complement each other. One segment might contract, another might stretch, and the third completes the movement so that all three segments merge into one unified macro leg. These numbers, whether it's 0.44, 0.77, 1.19, or any other value you see, are not meant to be exact Fibonacci laws. They are expressions of balance inside the structure. When one internal leg is shorter, the next leg often compensates, and the final leg completes the total proportion of the move. In other words, the diamonds show how price adjusts itself internally through contraction and expansion. As long as the diamonds stay relatively balanced, price remains in structure, meaning in order. When the diamonds start to distort and expand, price shifts into chaos. That transition from symmetry into distortion is exactly what prepares the market for a larger directional move. This is where the five-wave logic connects to the diamonds. The five waves are not the classic Elliott 1-2-3-4-5. Instead, they represent the macro outcome of how the diamonds behave inside each wave. Wave 1 usually forms from a relatively clean diamond, meaning price is still in a stable structural phase. Wave 2 forms another diamond, but the internal ratios already start to lose symmetry. Wave 3 shows the strongest expansion because its internal diamonds stretch the most. That is why Wave 3 accelerates. Wave 4 contracts again but stays unstable, and Wave 5 is the final release where the internal structure breaks entirely and completes the movement. So the five-wave sequence you see is simply the larger expression of the internal diamond ratios. When the internal structure stays balanced, the wave remains controlled. When the ratios expand, the market transitions from structure into chaos, creating the strong impulsive waves. The diamonds explain the micro behavior, and the five-wave pattern is the macro pattern that results from it.